Have you ever dreamt of being a plumber? How about a pole cleaner? Or perhaps a professional gambler? How about being fanned out of your mind on the streets? Well, thank God for video games that let us live these dream scenario experiences without even leaving our house. But even a bigger thank you to the simulation genre in games that let us live different jobs, experiences, or even mundane tasks just one click away from us. What exactly do sim games have that lead us players dumping hours into these games? How do they achieve it even without having the flashiest gameplay? And why do we get so emotionally attached to these pixels on a screen? Let's see how this glorified spreadsheet game did it, showcasing the beauty of the sim management genre. Let's talk about sim games, more specifically about the psychology and systems that are employed behind these games to make players fall in love with them. The simulation genre is massive, and it can be seen as early as 1964 with the Sumerian game. Sumerian? I honestly don't know how to pronounce it. A text-based strategy and resource management game developed for research purposes. After that, we got some modern iterations in the sim genre, with the game Utopia, released in 1981, and it is regarded as the first city sim building game created, which then was redefined by SimCity in 1989, regarded as the most groundbreaking city building simulation game created by that time. And hold your horses, because in 2000 we got The Sims, which was a real innovator and a stepping stone in the sim genre, showing the world that it was possible to simulate human life in a video game. If we fast forward to today, the simulation genre has been flooded with different games. Actually, when I mention the simulation genre, you might not even be thinking about games with complex systems and interaction between AI. But you might be thinking about the simulator subgenre, aka the games that let you be something else. Games like Truck Simulator, Card Shop Simulator, Flight Simulator, Farming Simulator, Power Wash Simulator, and even Goat Simulator. And that is completely fine. The simulation genre is so massive that it has so many different routes and avenues that can be explored within it. Just so you have an idea, just in the Steam genre of simulation, there are more than 44,000 games that you can explore. And if you search the term simulator on Steam, there are 25,000 search results. So why are these games so massive? To get the most obvious thing out of the way, these kind of games serve as a portal for you as a human to experience situations that under normal circumstances you would never be able to experience. For example, someone can grow up to be obsessed with planes. You know everything about planes, every single plane, and every time you get into a plane, you just get excited. But because getting a license and actually becoming a pilot is so difficult, you just never become one. First, becoming a pilot takes a set of skills that not every single human in history has. And second, flying out every weekend or just buying a plane costs a lot of money. So they go to their best next option. I just paid Daddy Microsoft $70 and I can buy Flight Simulator. Now I can fly inside real-life modeled planes in real-life airports all over the world. Or heck, look at me, I'm obsessed with open Pokemon cards. You might have seen it in the background of my other videos, but ripping packs is kind of expensive and I'm going broke by it. So I go to my second best option. I open packs inside a game, and in the meanwhile I can sell them to fake customers and create my own shop. At the end of the day, the main driver behind these simulator games is living an experience that would be somewhat impossible to live in real life. You're inside a controlled environment where you have control over everything, all while also skipping over the hurdles that real life throws your way. And the passion that these players have for these specific and niche topics is what ends up being translated in dedicated gamers and countless hours poured into these games. So with the obvious out of the way, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this video, dissecting what really gets you hooked to these simulation games and the decisions that developers do into creating these complex systems and AI that end up captivating the player and makes this genre a beautiful one. And to talk about this, I'm going to dive deeply into one of my favorite games at the moment, one that doesn't really fall under the simulator subgenre, but is more of a management simulation game. I'm of course talking about Football Manager. For those who need a quick intro on what this game is, Football Manager is simply a game where you act as the head coach of a football club and you manage the team. You are in charge of training, scouting, setting up tactics, hiring up staff, and even going to press conferences. And yes, I do go to every single one of them. Sue me. And you see, 90% of the gameplay in this game is staring at numbers and text on a screen. The other 10% of the game is you being frustrated because 22 pixelated men on the screen are not doing what you instructed them to do in the first place. In a traditional sense, there is really no gameplay in Football Manager. The gameplay is staring at numbers, analyzing stats, and just clicking on different tabs. You are not really playing the game. You simply set a tactic, choose the players that are gonna play for that match, and sit down and watch. And if you think that this is not flashy enough, let me tell you about the graphics and the game experience. This is what you see as soon as you load into your first save of Football Manager. Yes, it's just text. No music, no sound effects, just text. And I even have a skin loaded on. Like, the base game of the game doesn't even look like this. These tabs and tabs of text and information can be very overwhelming for new players, especially considering that there is not really a tutorial in place. Within the Football Manager community, there is a meme that Football Manager is just a glorified spreadsheet simulator game. And you know what? They're somewhat right. Most of the hours spent on this game are not simulating games, but rather going through hundreds of players and analyzing their stats and seeing what can you add to your team or which tactic to set. It's just looking at text and numbers. And you might be thinking, why is this guy like talking so much shit about Football Manager? But in reality, I love this. I'm not talking shit, I'm actually praising this in the game. With all of this being said about the game not being flashy and just being tabs of text and information, I have dumped over 500 hours of game time into this game. Between the touch, mobile, and PC version, I have spent countless hours of fun and frustration playing this game. I am completely addicted and fascinated with this game. I have felt happiness, anger, stress, and ineptitude, all thanks to this mountain of text and low resolution pixels on a screen. And yes, this is honestly one of my favorite games ever, and it has also led me to realize that this type of simulation games have become my favorite genre in game. And no, once again, I'm not talking about simulator games, I'm talking about games like Football Manager that put into position complex systems that interact with each other, creating a wonderful experience. But just like those simulator games that I mentioned, you still have that factor of being able to live an experience that in reality is not possible to live. I am 26. The highest level of football that I achieved in my playing career was high school varsity football team, and I was the substitute goalkeeper. But this game lets me live my frustrated dream of actually becoming a coach, and delusionally enough, it makes me believe that I can actually coach a real-life second-tier team and take them to glory. And all of this through just text and low-resolution pixels without being a cookie-cutter simulator type game. Football Manager is truly special, and it truly shines inside the simulation management subgenre. And going back to the simulator games, Football Manager achieves this sense of fulfilling a frustrated dream in a way different way than the simulator games do. Football Manager is not as explicit per se. Here, you're part of a small system, and that small system is part of a much bigger system. As an agent of this small system, you make changes happen in such a significant way that they can be seen being reflected on the much bigger system. Pause. Very complicated, right? Well, let me explain. What I'm saying is that this game immerses you in a whole world that just revolves around football, letting you play as basically any amateur, semi-pro, or professional football club that exists in the world right now. Being able to follow any real-life player that exists at the moment and taking control of any club and create your own story within this world, even achieving glory and changing history as a simulation passes each day in this fictional football world. I can check what's happening in a third-tier team in Colombia, or even go and check what's happening at the U20 Cup of the African Nations League. Or I can follow that 17-year-old wonder kid in a hidden club in China that it's about to become the next big star. Games like this one have a whole world simulating within your game file, and that type of immersion is what hooks you to this type of games. A lot of my hours in this game have been spent looking at scores in other leagues, or even following my real life team to see if they have won anything, or just looking at them to see if they have signed a player. In reality, I spend way too much time looking at them and they just haven't achieved anything, but whatever. I feel as an insider in this world, as an actual agent of change, someone that can make shit happen in a world that in real life, I'm so far off actually making something happen that in this fictional world, I feel like I'm in control and I actually matter. Aside from an interaction of complex systems, another thing that this kind of games offers the player is countless options, aka countless replayability. Having so many things interacting in the back with each other and so many simulation outcomes happening each day makes repeating one situation in this game virtually impossible. No matter how many times I try to recreate the same situation in my game save, something will change. It is such a huge world that with every day, lots of things happen. Hundreds or thousands of computations are being made by Football Manager in other leagues and other teams. A player that didn't get injured first gets injured, a team scored one more goal, or a head coach was sacked in another country in the world. No save will be exactly the same. You have so many components interacting with each other that no matter how many times you try it, no outcome will ever be the same. And not only in the world, even with your team, if you just simulate one day over and over again, different stuff can happen. This point that I mentioned right now, it is widely observed in the simulation genre in general, since simulation generally relies on AI interactions which can be a little bit unpredictable. However, it is a key aspect to this genre and to Football Manager, and this makes it a beautiful game. Aside from interacting with a huge system, generating changes in this huge system, and having countless replayability opportunities, there is something else that Football Manager shines on. It lets you experience the sense of building something meaningful. Let me dive a little bit into human psychology. It is no secret that as humans, we always try to find the meaning of stuff, whether it could be different situations, a trauma, or even the meaning of life. We have this constant need of giving importance to stuff in our lives. It is human nature, it is what keeps us going and basically the basics of being a human. And this is exactly what complex games like Football Manager achieve. They let you give an important meaning to the stuff that's going inside your simulated world. It could be as simply as giving an important meaning to a 4th-tier Spanish club that you're trying to promote to the top league. That journey you embark to reach that goal of reaching top flight is filled with experiences and feelings that give meaning to the task in hand, and even creates a connection with that club and gives meaning to it, since you are taking this deadbeat club to a world-class club and it's all you're doing, your creation. And it even goes to the point that as a manager, you get attached to certain players. It can be because they're goated at what they do, they are the same nationality as you, or you are just simply rooting for them. In a way, you are building a meaningful connection with a pixel on the screen. And it's not even a pixel, you're building it with text. And this type of meaningful situations start taking time away from your day-to-day life. I can't explain to you how many times I've been in the shower just sitting there under the water thinking about my next tactic, thinking about my next matchup and how I can beat them, or thinking about which player I should bench or I should play for my next game. You build meaningful connections, and in your life, these pixels and text take a role of importance. And all that I'm saying right now might sound crazy to some people that haven't experienced this or don't really play games or this type of games at all. But I do think that this is mainly achieved because of how hard it is to progress in this game. It is very hard to grasp it at first, and even when you understand it, you still find hurdles that have you scratching your head asking what the hell I'm doing wrong? What can I do to actually win games? And this kind of difficulties and hurdles that you find in this game take me to my next point: the systems that have been put there by the developers. The simulation and AI within Football Manager is complicated, or at least it has been coded in a way that it seems complicated enough. It has been coded to simulate the most real experience of managing a football club. For example, each player does not only has 36 stats that decide whether they're good or not, and each stat ranging between a value of 1 to 20, but they also have tens of other hidden stats that determine things of how they're gonna play, how they interact with the coach, and how they interact with the club atmosphere. Oh yes, because side note, one of the most important aspects in Football Manager in terms of winning is keeping your team morale and team atmosphere at a good level. And this goes deep. Because the morale of a team is not like in FIFA that is mainly determined by winning or losing. It is of course a huge point, but it has so many other factors affecting it. There are so many reasons of why a player morale changes for good or for the worse. They can randomly get into a beef with another player, they can disagree with some tactical changes you have made, or even they can get pissed that you are putting more resistance training into their schedule routine. And you can just go as deep as talking to each individual player and asking them or just discussing with them different stuff that can arise in the game. And this is just talking about managing the team. There are so many other layers of complexity that can be added and that they are in place in Football Manager. You have stuff like youth development or admin stuff or even interacting with the board. I can't really explain everything in detail here because it would take a huge chunk of time of this video, and two, I haven't even reached that level of deepness into the game yet. My point is that by giving the players such an amount and variety of options or actions that they can make within their club, and that being mixed with a complex simulation, makes the player get way more involved with their team, feeling that they are creating and building something real, making their wins feel so much better because they made that substitution in the 90th minute, or because they changed a single tactic, or just because they scouted a wonder kid in Africa. And also making losses feel so much more devastating because you have spent so many hours trying to figure out how to win. Complex systems. That is what makes me fall in love with this kind of games. Games that are not easy to get at a first glance. Games that require you to study them for hours before even starting to play. And if you layer that with the opportunity to have a detailed simulation and access to stat, number, dates, and history, you might just have the perfect simulation management game ever created. I don't like that when I mention that my favorite genre of games are simulation games, people just instantly assume that I spend hours behind a supermarket counter ringing up milk in the cash register. The simulation genre for me involves way more. And as I have repeated throughout this video, it involves the interaction of complex systems and AI simulating and interacting with each other to create a real world in a lifeless environment. Football Manager was the first game that I have ever tried in the simulation management genre, and honestly, the one that made me fall in love with this same genre. And I have so many more hours to give to this game. And the analysis that I just did, even though it was focused mainly on Football Manager, can be applied to other management simulation games that create their own worlds. Even though I haven't played them, but I have consumed a lot of content about these games, Factorio or Satisfactory end up achieving the same feeling that Football Manager does to its players. And I could argue, and probably players that play these games can argue too, that these games achieve it on a more intense level. Because in these games, you are the one trying to create complex mechanical automated systems to gather resources of a planet and then refine them. This is a very oversimplified description of this kind of games, and if you have the chance, please, for the love of God, give them a try. Or then you have games like Dwarf Fortress, where simulating a colony go to the extreme, and it is actually somewhat similar to Football Manager because it has very simple graphics and it relies heavily on mountains of text and reading and understanding the dwarfs in your colony, and it gets more and more complex as your dwarf colony grows in size, generating more situations and more chaos within your dwarf colony. Again, very oversimplified definition, but please check this game out. The point being that this subgenre of simulation management games is a beautiful subgenre to explore. And I think that compared with other genres like puzzlers or platformers, for example, game design isn't what shines here, but rather the AI and the code and the systems that are employed to create these lifeless worlds and make them feel alive. And these genres are essentially providing players with countless hours of gaming and replayability and not spending a lot of money in the process. I just wanted to give a shout out to this genre that I love. And honestly, one day I really hope to be able to create a game that can give another player the countless hours that Football Manager has given me, immersing them into their own simulated world. If you're a developer, one of the main key things that you can take out from this video or Football Manager is that sometimes being able to create interactions within your game and letting the player interact with almost anything in your game in a meaningful way goes a long way in giving players countless hours of experiences and games. The challenge now is simply reaching such a good level of coding to be able to generate these simulated worlds. With all that being said, we have reached the end of the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this little analysis of the simulation genre. I can't really tell you guys how happy I am of creating videos for you and how ecstatic I am that as such a small YouTuber, I'm getting tons of views and comments, likes, and support in general in my channel. I'm just gonna keep trying to improve for you guys in every single video that I put out, and I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please help me out by subbing to my channel and also checking out some of my other videos that I have put before. They might pique your interest and they are kind of similar to the style that you have just watched. I hope you guys have a good one, and I will see you in the next one.